Well, at long last, today we get to meet the aorist and the future passive indicative. Previously, we've met the future and the aorist active and middle indicative, but now we get to learn the passive voice. It's a little bit different in its formation, but it's going to be really easy to identify. I do want to remind you of my full courses at potterschool.org and often offered at alts.edu for graduate students at the American Lutheran Theological Seminary. And I always have something happening at Wittenberg Door Campus Ministry, Wittenberg, Como. Let's take a look back at how verbs work and find the principal parts of a verb. Those principal parts are the forms that show what kind of odd things can happen to the verb. And so far we've studied 3 of them. The first principal part is the present active indicative, like the word luo. The second principal part is the future active indicative, so we have luso. And the third principal part is the aorist active indicative, elusa. So we have luo, luso, elusa, or we have lepo, lepso, elepon. Now the other 3 principal parts are pretty predictable, so different people have different attitudes about how thoroughly to study them, but they are still important. But usually their formation is pretty predictable. You may need to look up some of them, but others you might not need to. The future and aorist passive indicative will be formed on the 6th principal part. So we're skipping the 4th and the 5th parts for the time being, and we'll jump onto the 6th principal part. Now, the 6th principal part is easy to recognize because it has a theta eta at the end of the stem. So here's how it's going to work out. For the aorist passive, we're going to have an augment because it's aorist. We'll have a stem ending with a theta eta, and then we'll have a secondary active ending. Yes, active, not passive. Let's take a look at that aorist passive with its augment, its stem, luthe, and its active ending on, amen, eta, on. You see, it simply gets rearranged a little bit by the theta eta. There's an extra sigma stuck in there in the 3rd person plural. But you'll be able to recognize that stem quite easily, I think. There's the aorist passive. Let's look at one more thing going on here, the future passive indicative. And for the future passive, we have no augment because it's future, it's not aorist. We have a stem ending with theta eta sigma. See the sign of the future tense, and we have a primary passive ending. Now, always do watch for signs of different tenses. Let's look at that future passive indicative. You see, no augment. There's a stem with a theta eta sigma, luthes, and then your primary middle or passive ending, omai, etai, amatha, estha, antai. All right, the aorist and future passive indicative, so you have had both active, both of 3, active, middle, and passive. Have fun doing Greek.